My first night with my husband. Chapter 1. The Wedding Day. The day had been long, bright, and filled with 1,000 emotions. I had woken before dawn, the sky still wrapped in a velvet darkness that made everything feel surreal. My mother sat beside me as I had my hair done, her hands resting softly on mine. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. Her silence held all the love and worry that words could never contain. The wedding hall was decked with golden drapes and thousands of flowers. Everyone kept telling me how beautiful I looked. I smiled, nodding politely, my heart hammering in my chest. He had arrived, my husband, Rohan. The man I had met only twice before the engagement, though our families had known each other for years. Rohan looked calm, almost serene. He greeted my father with the respectful warmth that made everyone admire him. But when our eyes met for the first time that morning, I felt a flicker of uncertainty. Who was he really? What did he expect of me? And what would tonight bring? Hours passed in a haze of rituals, music, and laughter. I changed into a crimson silk sari, heavy with embroidery. Rohan wore a cream-colored sherwani that matched the colors of the stage. When the priest tied the sacred knot between us, everyone cheered. We circled the fire 7 times, reciting vows I could barely comprehend over the rush of my heartbeat. By the time we left the hall, I was exhausted, but it was not the tiredness of the body. It was the weight of all that had changed in a single day. Chapter 2. The Journey to a New Home. My sisters and cousins followed me out, sobbing as the time for farewell arrived. My mother hugged me tightly. For a moment, I didn't want to let go. In her embrace, I was still a child, still someone safe in her world. But time moved forward, whether I was ready or not. Rohan's family led me to the decorated car waiting outside. He helped me in, his hand lightly touching mine. We both pretended not to notice the contact. As we pulled away, I watched my family disappear in the rearview mirror, their figures growing smaller, finally swallowed by the darkening road. Inside the car, there was an uneasy quiet. Rohan cleared his throat. "You must be tired," he said gently. "Yes," I whispered. "We'll reach home soon," he assured me, offering a small, tentative smile. I nodded, unsure how to answer. Outside, the city lights flashed by, bright and cold. I tried to imagine what my new home would look like, what the room would be like, where I would sleep, whether he would be there beside me. My heart thudded harder. Chapter 3. Crossing the Threshold. The house was warm and welcoming, lit with dozens of oil lamps and fairy lights strung across the entrance. His mother stood waiting with a brass plate of arti. She welcomed me with the traditional rituals. Everyone seemed so happy, so expectant. I followed Rohan to the main hall, where more ceremonies awaited, greeting the family elders, offering sweets, receiving blessings. Every smile, every touch felt overwhelming. I wanted a quiet corner where I could breathe. At last, it was time to go to our room. My sister-in-law took my hand, her eyes mischievous. "Come on, Bobby," she teased. "He's waiting for you." My heart somersaulted. She led me to a wooden door decorated with garlands. She pushed it open, and I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the fragrance. Jasmine and rose petals. The bed was covered in fresh flowers, a tradition I had always watched in movies but never imagined for myself. Candles flickered along the walls, casting a soft glow. Rohan stood by the window, his back turned to me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he turned around, his eyes searching mine. Chapter 4. The Silence Between Us. He came closer and stopped a few steps away. I realized I was trembling. My hands, my breath, even the hem of my saree. He noticed. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly. "We don't have to hurry anything." His kindness surprised me. I looked down, feeling tears prick my eyes, tears of relief and confusion. He reached out and took my hand. His fingers were warm, steady. "Sit," he urged gently. I sat on the edge of the bed. He took the chair opposite me. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. I could hear my heart, the clock ticking on the wall, and the distant hum of voices outside. Rohan seemed as unsure as I was. Finally, he spoke. "I know this is all very new," he began. "For me too." I glanced up, startled. He looked almost shy. That made something inside me relax a little. "Do you want some water?" he asked. I nodded, grateful for something ordinary. He poured a glass from the silver jug on the table and handed it to me. I took a sip, trying to collect my scattered thoughts. "I don't expect you to feel anything just because we are married," he continued carefully. "I want us to be comfortable first." That was the first time I felt like I could breathe. Chapter 5. The First Conversation. I set the glass aside and looked at him more closely. In the bright wedding lights, he had looked almost intimidating, but here he was just a man, young, nervous, trying his best. What do you like to do?" I asked in a small voice, desperate to make conversation. He smiled. "I read a lot," he said, "and I love old Hindi music." I felt a flicker of curiosity. "Which singers?" "Muhammad Rafi," he replied without hesitation, "and Lata Mangeshkar." "My mother listens to them all the time," I said. His smile widened. "Then maybe you'll sing for me someday." I blushed and looked away. We talked for an hour about our families, our childhood, our studies. Every word made the air between us less heavy, though the flowers on the bed reminded me of why we were here. The conversation was its own comfort. Chapter 6. A Gentle Beginning. At last, the conversation faded into another silence. Rohan shifted slightly, his expression thoughtful. "If you want, I can sleep on the sofa," he said. "Or I can stay here. Only if you are comfortable." I didn't know what to say. Part of me longed for him to stay, this kind, soft-spoken stranger who was now my husband. Another part of me was still afraid. I swallowed and whispered, "I don't mind if you stay." His relief was visible. He nodded, then moved to sit beside me on the edge of the bed. Slowly, he reached for my hand again. This time, I didn't pull away. His touch was warm, careful. He rested his palm over mine, as if silently promising he would never hurt me. "Are you sure?" he asked. I met his eyes and nodded. He leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. My breath caught in my throat. It was the simplest gesture, yet it felt like the beginning of something precious. We lay down, side by side, fully clothed. He didn't try to rush or claim me. Instead, he held my hand until sleep finally found us both. That was how our first night truly began, not with passion, but with kindness. Chapter 7. The Morning After. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed was the weight of his hand still over mine. The morning light was soft, peeking through the curtains. For a moment, I lay still, listening to his steady breathing. Memories of the night returned, our hesitant conversation, his reassuring presence, the gentle kiss on my forehead. My fear had not disappeared completely, but it had softened into something less sharp. I turned my head slightly to look at him. Rohan was awake, watching me with a quiet smile. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," I whispered. He sat up and stretched, glancing around the room as though seeing it properly for the first time. The flowers had started to wilt a little. Their perfume still hung in the air, mingling with the cool breeze from the window. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with the honesty of it. He nodded, looking relieved. There was something endearing in how careful he was being, as though he was afraid any sudden move might scare me. "I'll ask them to bring breakfast," he offered, rising from the bed. I watched him cross the room, wondering what it would be like to spend every day beside this man, who was a stranger and yet somehow already felt familiar. Chapter 8. The Whisper of Trust. The next few days passed in a gentle rhythm. I met relatives, learned the corners of my new home, and tried to remember everyone's names. Rohan never pressed me to be more open than I was ready to be. Each evening, he returned from work and sat with me, asking about my day. At night, he would lie beside me, never crossing the invisible line of my comfort. Some nights we talked. Other nights we simply listened to the ticking clock, the quiet hush of the neighborhood settling into sleep. One evening, as I was folding my sari, he came in and sat on the edge of the bed. "You're very quiet these days," he said softly. I hesitated, my hands trembling over the fabric. I don't know what to say sometimes." "That's all right," he assured me. "You don't have to say anything." "But I want to," I whispered. "I want to feel close." His expression softened, and he reached for my hand. "Then let's take our time. There is no rule that says it all has to happen at once." For the first time, I felt my fear loosen its hold. He was right. There was no need to hurry. Love did not arrive like lightning. Sometimes it grew slowly, unfolding one day at a time. Chapter 9. The First Touch. It was the 5th night when something shifted between us. We had been talking about small things. His first job, my school memories. I was laughing at something he said when he reached up and brushed my hair behind my ear. The touch sent a shiver down my spine. His fingers lingered, and our eyes locked. The laughter faded, replaced by a quiet anticipation. "May I?" he asked, his voice low. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I nodded. My heart thundered in my chest. Slowly, carefully, he cupped my cheek in his palm. The warmth of it steadied me. He leaned forward, and I closed my eyes. When his lips touched mine, it was soft, hesitant, a question as much as a kiss. I answered by placing my hand over his heart, feeling its rhythm match my own. It was a simple kiss, but it changed everything. The wall of uncertainty between us cracked, letting something tender and real flow through. Chapter 10. The Flower Garland. The next morning, I found a garland of fresh jasmine on my dressing table. A small note rested beside it in Rohan's handwriting. "For your hair. I thought you'd like it." My heart warmed at the thoughtfulness. I pinned the flowers into my braid before going down to breakfast. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. "You look lovely," he murmured. I blushed, unable to hold his gaze. But inside, something bloomed, a fragile sense of belonging. His mother watched us with a knowing smile. She said nothing, but I could tell she was pleased to see the slow, delicate closeness that was forming between us. Chapter 11. The Night of Rain. One evening, it rained heavily. The power went out, plunging the house into a soft darkness broken only by candlelight. I sat on the bed, listening to the rain drumming the roof. Rohan came in with a candle in his hand. He placed it on the table and sat beside me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Are you afraid?" he asked finally. "Of the dark?" I smiled faintly. "No." He nodded, looking relieved. He glanced at me, his eyes searching mine for permission before he took my hand in both of his. His palms were warm and steady. "Sometimes I'm afraid," he confessed. "Afraid that I won't know how to make you happy." His honesty disarmed me. I turned my hand so our fingers wove together. "You already have," I whispered. Outside, the rain fell harder. Inside, the silence grew comfortable, no longer something we had to fill. That night, when he kissed me again, it was less hesitant. My hands rose to his shoulders, feeling the solid strength there. My heart raced, but it was no longer fear that drove it. It was the first flutter of trust. Chapter 12. Becoming One. In the weeks that followed, every small gesture built something between us. When I woke, I looked forward to his smile. When he returned from work, I listened to his stories. Each night, our closeness grew, inch by inch, heartbeat by heartbeat. On our 30th night together, he sat beside me, his expression open and vulnerable. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I took a deep breath, my heart beating so fast I thought it would burst. "Yes," I whispered. He kissed me then, slow, deliberate, full of the promise we had been building all this time. His touch was patient, never rushing, never demanding more than I wanted to give. When he finally drew me into his arms, every doubt, every fear fell away. That night, we became more than husband and wife. We became each other's first true home. Chapter 13. The Morning of New Beginnings. When I opened my eyes the next morning, the first thing I saw was Rohan's face, soft in sleep. His arm was draped around my waist, anchoring me gently against him. I lay still, memorizing every detail. The way his lashes rested on his cheek, the slow rise and fall of his chest. For the first time, I did not feel like a stranger in this house. I felt like someone who belonged. Carefully, I slipped out of his embrace and wrapped myself in a shawl. The floor was cool under my feet as I padded to the dressing table. My hair was a tangle, my skin flushed in a way that made me shy to look in the mirror. But beneath the embarrassment, there was something else, an unmistakable sense of happiness. I glanced back at the bed. He was awake now, watching me with sleepy eyes. "Good morning," he murmured. "Good morning," I replied, my voice soft. He sat up, pushing his hair back. A small smile tugged at his mouth, as though we shared a secret no one else could ever understand. And perhaps we did. Last night had not been perfect in the way that stories promised. There had been awkwardness, nervous laughter, moments of uncertainty. But it was perfect in the only way that mattered. It was ours. Chapter 14. The Gentle Rituals. That day, everything felt different. I moved through the house with a newfound confidence. My mother-in-law noticed immediately. When she handed me the brass tray of flowers for the morning prayers, her eyes held a silent approval. I went about the rituals, lighting incense, placing marigolds before the idols. As I folded my hands in prayer, I did not ask for anything specific. I only thanked the quiet force that had brought me to this moment, safe, accepted, and loved. At breakfast, Rohan sat beside me. His knee brushed mine under the table. A small reminder that we were no longer strangers. We were partners now. Chapter 15. Learning each other. Over the next weeks, we settled into our life together. We discovered each other's quirks, how he liked his tea strong, how I hummed to myself when I cooked, how he could never remember where he left his keys. Some nights, we talked for hours. Other nights, we simply held each other. The comfort of touch saying more than any words could. He began to share the details of his work, the stress he carried on his shoulders, the dragons he still held close. I told him about my fears, of not being enough, of failing to be the wife he deserved. Each confession was met with the same quiet understanding. It amazed me how natural it became to lean into each other's lives. The man who had once been a stranger became my friend, my confidant, my husband in every sense of the word. Chapter 16. The Festival Night. One evening during a festival, our home was filled with guests. The women wore bright saris, the men crisp kurtas. The house rang with laughter and music. All evening, I was busy helping with the arrangements, making sure the sweets were warm and the lamps stayed lit. Late into the night, when the last guests had finally left, I found Rohan standing on the terrace, looking up at the stars. I stepped beside him, drawing my shawl tighter against the cool breeze. "You must be tired," he said, his voice gentle. "I am," I admitted, "but happy." He turned to face me, his expression thoughtful. "I was just thinking, how much has changed?" "It has," I agreed. He brushed his knuckles along my cheek. "I don't know when I started needing you like this," he said softly, "as though you've always been here." The words filled me with a warmth that glowed deep inside. I reached for his hand. "Me too," I whispered. Beneath the sky thick with stars, he kissed me. It was a kiss without urgency, without fear. A promise and a celebration. Chapter 17. The Promise of Tomorrow. Some months later, I returned to my parents' home for a short visit. My mother hugged me for a long time, searching my face with worried eyes. "You look different," she said finally. "How?" I asked. "Happier," she said, her voice soft. I smiled. "I am." It was true. The shy girl who had left this house months ago was gone. In her place was a woman learning to trust her heart. When it was time to leave, my mother cupped my face in her hands. "May your marriage always be like this," she said, gentle, full of understanding. As I rode back with Rohan, I held her blessing close. I knew we would have disagreements, misunderstandings, and days when nothing felt easy. But if our first night had taught me anything, it was that love could begin quietly, like a seed taking root in the dark, and grow into something stronger than either of us alone. Chapter 18. A night like any other. That evening, we sat together on the balcony, sipping tea. The world beyond was busy, but in our little corner, everything was still. Rohan reached for my hand, interlacing our fingers. It struck me how natural this had become, how right. "Remember our first night?" he asked suddenly. I laughed. "How could I forget? You were so scared," he teased gently. "And you were so awkward," I countered. He grinned. True, but you were patient, I said, sobering. And that made all the difference. He lifted my hand to his lips and kissed my knuckles. You made me patient, he murmured. That night, as we lay in each other's arms, it no longer felt like something fragile or uncertain. It felt like home. The place we had built together, one quiet moment at a time. Epilogue, the first night remembered. Years later, when people asked me about my wedding night, they expected stories of grand gestures or instant passion. But my memory was simpler and infinitely more precious. It was a night of careful questions and hesitant touches, of two people crossing the distance between them with patience and trust. It was the night I learned love didn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it came softly, a promise whispered in the dark, a hand held without expectation, a kiss pressed to a trembling forehead. And that was enough, more than enough, because it was the beginning of everything.